Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Know the Facts. I have a very special guest tonight, and it's a pleasure to have him here, Dr. Claremont. He's very knowledgeable. He's been a doctor a million years. He knows the ifs, ands, and buts about everything. Dr. Claremont, how you doing?
I'm doing fine, Bob.
Okay.
I'm doing fine.
Okay.
So,
What would you like to?
I wanted to talk a little bit about senior issues.
Go ahead. Do whatever you
Because
want.
that's right now I'm retired. I work up at the volunteer up at the senior center in Shrewsbury,
yeah.
and I got very much interested in senior issues
Yeah.
because they're not being addressed,
No.
and especially not being addressed by the healthcare system in general, anyway.
No.
So.
No.
Let's deal right from the beginning, because I've been up there since 2000 when this not a new senior center anymore, but when the senior center opened again.
Oh, wow.
And so it's been a while,
Yeah,
and you get accustomed to a lot of the issues as you go along. So let's just start right from the beginning.
Okay.
And at the beginning, what I always start with is the fact, I talk to seniors now. Remember Pogo? The old Pogo comic strip,
Yeah.
and it said, Pogo said, "We have met the enemy, and it is us." And that's as absolutely true in Shrewsbury as it is a lot of areas in the country. The seniors themselves just don't go out for themselves.
No.
They are very silent,
Yeah.
and they suffer in silence, and there's no reason for it. We got over 8,300 seniors in Shrewsbury, over 60, 8,300. That's more than the number of school kids in Shrewsbury. And right now, I'm the president of the Friends Group in the Senior Center. We have 275 members, 275 out of 8,300 plus.
Wow.
Now that's absolutely terrible.
That's sad.
3.2%. That's it.
That's sad.
That's it. And so basically what I tell people, I use that as an introduction, and I say, listen, you are the only one who's going to be an advocate for your own health.
Yep.
Don't look to anyone else, except maybe your healthcare proxy if you're in bad shape. Yes, your healthcare proxy should be able to do it for you, but otherwise you yourself need to look out for your own health. And so what I did is I went through a lot of the different things that are issues for the seniors. I'm not through with it. After 20 years, I still have issues, but we're trying to address as many as we can. So the very first thing that I put on a little seminar for the seniors on what's normal and what's not normal in your body. What can you look forward to as a senior, and when do you cross the line? When do you need to get a doctor involved? And so basically, we go through every system in the body, every system. Obviously, some systems deteriorate faster than others, like, for example, your eyes. You may get glaucoma, which is the pressure in the eye. You may get macular degeneration. All these different things that can happen. How many seniors haven't had cataracts, for example, because you get a deterioration of the lens? All these different things. Every Spirit of Shrewsbury weekend at the Senior Center, we have the Lions Club. They have a vision mobile, which unfortunately is getting a little out of date now, but still it's a very good thing to have. We bring them up to the Senior Center, and then we have a little seminar on the inside. We're going to do that this Spirit of Shrewsbury weekend. That's Saturday, the last Saturday of September. And we're going to have a seminar on what do you do when your eyesight is going and your doctors can't help you anymore. All the little aids that you can get that'll help your vision a little bit so that you can function better. So that's the seminar we're going to have this year. And remember, we always give out some free ice cream at the Senior Center. Got to give out something, so we give out a little ice cream at the time. We had a pretty good turnout last year, so we expect to have a few more this year. But getting back to the first thing, what's normal and what's abnormal. I plan to have a seminar on that as well towards the end of the summer. We're going to have a seminar on that at the Senior Center in Shrewsbury, and we'll go over all the normal things. I wouldn't do it today because it's going to take almost an hour to go through the abnormal and the normal. So, but that is something to look forward to. Please look in your, we're going to advertise it. We usually advertise on Selco as well. So look forward to it. And it's a good thing to start with, so you'll know if there's an issue or not. Okay. What are the issues in that seniors really have a lot of? Blood pressure, hypertension, and there's loads of different medications that can help lower your blood pressure. First of all, elevated blood pressure usually doesn't cause symptoms. It's only when it gets really bad that you begin to have some symptoms from it. You want to get that treated before it gets to that stage. Why? Why? Because one of the biggest problems with dementia, and we'll talk about dementia during this conversation, one of the biggest problems with dementia is vascular problems, problems with your blood vessels, and that usually is related to high blood pressure. You also can get that affecting your kidneys, your heart, etc. So you want to check your blood pressure. We do blood pressure checks every week up at the senior center, for example.
That's great.
Don't rely on the blood pressures that you get. Just put your arm in the machine over at any of the drugstores and all. They're not calibrated well. They may give you a false reading. I've had people come in, I have blood pressure of 180 over 100, my gosh. You know, I take it as about 130, 140. I said, that's not that bad, you know. Probably needs a treatment, but not that bad. But I'm glad you came anyway, because you probably need to be on something. I'm retired now, so I can't go and prescribe stuff for people, but I tell them what they need. Go and tell your primary care doctor, get this medication.
Right.
So that's the way we handle it there. Every week, every Wednesday, from about 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock, we do blood pressure checks. Most of the time, I'm giving advice, which is fine, which is absolutely fine. I don't have dementia yet, but I may in the future, and the advice I give may not be that correct, but right now, at least I can give you a good idea of what you need to know. So, blood pressure, number one. Number two, diabetes. It's amazing the number of people who have blood sugar problems.
Yep.
And a lot of them nowadays do need to have treatment. You don't necessarily need insulin, but you need treatment for it. Believe it or not, the basic treatment of diabetes is watching what the heck you eat and watching your weight. Simple, very simple, but that very difficult for people as well to follow. You may need medication, and if so, we can check your blood sugars. And if we check your blood sugar and it's up, believe it or not, I give you a little note. You can give your primary doctor, get it checked, get your hemoglobin A1C checked, and get on some medication along with that diet. Weight is very important. And believe it or not, overweight is a big deal, especially if you're not active. Most of the seniors are not active. I was really mad at the senior center. I still run exercise classes up there. All the people who came to the exercise classes were women. I said, what the heck? Why aren't the men coming?
Yeah.
Well, they felt uncomfortable in a class full of women. And I said, well, have you ever been invited to a class? No. I said, well, for cripe's sakes, let's have a class for men. And that's what we have now. We have a class for men and a class for women.
Great.
And the largest class is the class for men. They're coming out. All they had to do was to be invited, for God's sakes. And not to be embarrassed, just to be invited to the class and to participate. And believe it or not, they come up and tell me they feel better.
Yeah.
Their waist is down a little bit. Their weight is down a little bit. And if you can get your weight down, sugar comes down, blood pressure comes down, naturally, without medicine. So think about it. Every Tuesday from 1 to 2, Senior Center, exercise for men. So getting back to the diabetes again. The diabetes, as I said, is very, very common. And I can give plenty of advice. I can't treat you now because I'm not actively, I retired. I admit it, I retired. Soon as I hit 79 or so, I said, this is crazy. I can't afford this anyway, because you gotta buy your license, you gotta get all these darn things. I said, I can't afford this anymore. But I can still give advice. My mind's not gone yet. So come on up, we'll check your blood sugar. Any Wednesday I'm there, Senior Center, from 11 to 1. Okay. Cancer. Cancer is a big deal. Always has been, always probably will be for a while yet. Why do we get cancer? Yeah, some of them are inherited. I admit it, some of them are inherited. Maybe 30% of them are inherited. But some of them are related to what we eat, what we drink, and the air we breathe. Those three things: air, water, and food.
Excuse me. Do you think the problem in Shrewsbury with the tainted water, would that bring on a...
Bring on cancer?
bring on
Obviously.
cancer.
Hexachromium related to cancer. We know that. We already know that. The manganese that was in the water, not much, you can't really relate it so much to cancer, but not a good thing to have in excess in the water. Fortunately, with our new treatment plant, that's gotten the manganese down. But could there be other things in the water? Yes. All they do in Shrewsbury is basically they follow the EPA standards. Now the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, they're a good agency to have. I mean, we wouldn't, if we didn't have an agency at least monitoring these things, God knows where we would be. But they are very lax with some of the things that they recommend. They allow a certain amount of material to be in the water. Yeah, sure, it may be a small amount, but who knows how much do you need in order to trigger off the DNA in your body to cause a cancer? They can't answer that. But they do have standards that have to be below that standard in order to qualify to be a good water system. So Shrewsbury does qualify. But you know, the water in Shrewsbury, besides the hexachromium, which needs to be addressed more vigorously, more aggressively than what it is. I'll give you an example. We always have dogs in our family. And of course, we fill the bowl from the tap. And for a long time, I didn't have a water purification system, so we filled it from the tap. And the next morning, whatever water the poor dogs didn't drink, it would be lined, basically lined with this sediment, for God's sakes. And I said, gee, that's in our water system. We're drinking that stuff. But the sediment, I was told, don't worry about the sediment. Well, I don't know if I should worry about it or not. I don't believe what they're telling me. What's in that sediment may change from time to time, too. Right. You don't know what's in it. And so what I did, and what I recommend to people, if you live in Shrewsbury, you should have a home water purification system in your home. You can do it for the whole house, or you can just do it for the water that you drink and that you cook with. You put it right under the sink. If you can afford it, I would put the home system in, because you know what happens? They flush these hydrants. Twice a year they're flushing the hydrants. They claim it's because of the old pipes and all. And maybe it is, I don't know. But nevertheless, you look at your water for the next few hours and it's brown practically. Well, that stuff sticks in all the little filters. The filter that comes into the tap that you drink, the filter that goes to the washer, the filter that goes to all the little places in your house that use water. After they flush the hydrants, I have to go and wash out and clean all those filters every time they do it. And they're oblivious to it. They don't realize what they're doing. And so that's the reason I put a water purification system into my house. But I have it just for the tap, just for the water we drink. I put in what's called a Puritan. That's one of the major companies, the Puritan water purification systems. But you can do a simple thing. You can just go get a Brita filter, B-R-I-T-A, Brita filter, and just run your tap water in, filters through carbon, and it takes out the major impurities in the water. Now, what I did, I looked into the systems to see how do you purify water? How do the systems purify it? What do the towns do? Well, even with our new purification system, what they do, first they'll aerate it. Well, aerating the system would take out a lot of the gases, like radon, for example. Now, a lot of people still don't understand radon. I don't understand radon. I know that it's a degenerative product of uranium, which is in the ground. But it takes a little time, and that radon gas leaches into the house from underneath, from the soil underneath. If you have radon above a certain level, which is usually they use 4 as a rough guess, but if you're above that, supposedly radon stimulates cancer of the lung. Any proof of that? No. The only proof they have is from the people who worked in the uranium mines. And believe it or not, those uranium mines had a lot of that radon in it. There, they had definitely elevated levels of cancer of the lung. But no proof yet in Shrewsbury. So if you sell your house, though, you got to have that radon checked. You don't have to in Massachusetts, but usually the buyer will insist on it. And then you have to have a radon mitigation system put in. Probably not a bad thing, but it does cost a fair amount of money. It costs you another $1,000 to put the damn system in. So, at any rate, first is aeration. That's what a town does. Then it's filtered. Filtered through usually just sand. The systems that are in the house use activated carbon, or they may use another substance, but usually activated carbon, and that's usually a pretty good system. The sand does the same thing. Well, look at the pools, those swimming pools that we use. A lot of them just use sand in their big filters. They use sand. That filters out all the impurities. Takes out all the big impurities. Doesn't take all of them out. The big impurities go with the sand. Then it goes down, and then they sterilize it. What do they use? They use chlorine to sterilize it. That's what you use in your pools, chlorine or bromine, or you may even have just regular salt water in your pool. All these things they use to purify. But our town uses chlorine. So you got chlorine, and that kills viruses, bacteria, fungi. It kills the parasites. So it does purify the water with regard to microorganisms. Doesn't purify the water as far as sediment and all goes. So we're still, so far now we got the bugs out of it, we got the big things out of it with the filtering, and now what do? Well, now they say, well, you got pretty good water now we're going to fluoridate it. Okay, so now they fluoridate it. What does fluoride do? Well, it prevents cavities in kids, no question about that. The good scientific proof that it does prevent cavities in kids. What does it do to adults? Well, I don't know. You ask them, well, they don't really know either. Well, it strengthens your bones. Well, I don't know so much about that. But at least I'm a little suspicious about it for adults. Should we fluoridate or not? A lot of communities don't. At any rate, the system I have in my house, the home purification system, takes out both chlorine and fluoride. Takes both out. Unfortunately, doesn't take hexachromium out. But nevertheless, the more things you can get out of it, the purer the water.
That's right.
So what alternative do you have? Well, you can drink bottled water. Bottled water. That is a big business here in Shrewsbury. It's a big business in the world. Water is probably, well, it's not probably, now, water has taken over from soda as the highest selling beverage over in the stores in the United States. Highest selling. Tremendous amount of bottled water. Is it totally safe? Well, a lot of the bottled water is just tap water that comes out of your faucet that's been purified. That's it. That's it. Could it have impurities in it? Hell yes, it can. And the impurities vary with your communities. It varies with where you are. What sort of businesses have been in there, how much stuff they got rid of, just let it go into the ground or into the surface water. So it varies a lot with each community. So at any rate, bottled water is not totally 100% safe. Why? Well, have you ever been by some of the gas stations that are selling water? Where's the water located? It's outside of the station, in the sunlight, right in the sunlight. Let me tell you a little bit about bottled water. Bottled water, if I took that bottle and I held it up to the sun. Remember when you were a kid, you used a little prism and all. We used to make fires that way. Sunlight came through, hotter than heck at that end. Water acts as a prism as well. So if you put that water in your car, leave it in there in the sunlight, windows up, that water then begins to impurify very quickly. Two things happen. Number one, you can produce from that plastic, you can produce dioxane. Dioxane is known to be a carcinogen of the breast in women. I've long suspected that Shrewsbury is a depot for breast cancer. Can't get proof. Nobody will give me proof. I've looked. Can't get the proof. But boy, I've seen so much breast cancer in Shrewsbury. Maybe a little more than normal, at least to my thinking. Is it related at all to dioxin? I don't know, but it certainly doesn't help. But you got to have that sunlight going into the bottle in order to produce that. Also, that sunlight also produces a thing called bisphos A. Bisphos is a hormone-altering substance, and it produces an estrogen-like effect. So in men, your breasts may get a little bit bigger. Sperm count goes down. You may get a little erectile dysfunction. Usually, they blame age. You know, age, they blame age for everything, you know? Yeah. But it's sometimes what you eat and what you drink. So bottled water isn't necessarily the answer. I love to talk about Poland Spring. Poland Spring, well, that's probably the most common one that's sold around here. Of course, there's a number of them now that the bigger companies have taken over. Nestle, in fact, owns Poland Spring now.
Right.
Nestle. But Coca-Cola owns Acacia and all. They all have their own brand now, and they're all in competition now. It's interesting, about, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago, they did a double-blind study. They put glasses of different bottled water and New York City tap water. New York City. And they had the people drink it, rate them 1 to 10. What do you think? New York City won. Of all the bottled waters, New York City won as the best tasting water. Unbelievable.
That's crazy.
It's crazy, isn't it? But that's just an aside thing. But it goes to show that bottled water isn't necessarily the answer. How about the big bottles? What do? Well, you put those in the sunlight, produces arsenic. Did you know that they tried to put a well in the center of town many years ago? They had to abandon it because it had arsenic in it in the center of town in Shrewsbury. I thought, gee whiz, that's really something. But at any rate, let's not talk too much about water. We talked about air with the radon.
Yeah.
And how about processed foods? That's the third component. All this is related now to cancer. We're talking about cancer. Processed foods. That may be the biggest contributor to cancer that we have in this country. Did we have cancer when we were kids? Yeah, it was around. But we ate what we produced. You know, going back to the old caveman days, they ate what they killed. That's it. And that's what the Indians did. They didn't have a lot of cancer. They had some cancer, yeah, but not like that. Not like we have nowadays. Young people coming up with cancer. Processed foods. Well, what do I mean by processing? That means taking the food, altering it in some way. Usually, like for example with rice. they'll just knock off the outer coat of that rice. And it's processed. Did that do any good to the food? Probably not. Probably made it worse. What do you do with simple bread, like we used to make right in our ovens and all, you know? What do they do with this white bread? Well, first of all, it has to be bleached, has to be, they add additives to it. They make it to the point where you have to look at the label, read all those additives. Well, you don't know if any of the additives are on the list of things that are possible carcinogens. You don't know. How can you know that all these chemicals and all that are added are on that carcinogenic list or not? Remember, the EPA only has to be so much. If you go above it, bad. If you're under it, you're good. So, processing foods, terrible, terrible. And the worst ones are the fast food places. You want to put weight on fast? Go to a fast food place. Oh, incidentally, the fried foods, French fries, got a bad rep. Potatoes are actually very good for you. But if you're going to cook them or fry them in oil, now you got to think of, well, which oil is the best? Well, there's dozens of different oils on the market. Most of them now use canola oil. Is that good or bad? I don't know if it's better than olive oil or not. But nevertheless, those are the only two that are generally used, canola oil and olive oil. Use an air fryer. Air fryer will do it without oil. And the French fries are fine. Just a little learning curve. Use your air fryer. And you can still enjoy French fries. They don't use the air fryers in the fast food places. They throw them in that canola oil, you know, soak it right up. Ah, it tastes so good, you know, but that's the way it is. That's just the way it is. So basically you need to do a few things. Number one, don't be afraid to read the labels. Read your labels. Look at the amount of saturated fat that's in that food. Saturated is bad, unsaturated is good. So remember that. Unsaturated good, saturated bad. And the more the saturated fat, the worse the product is. Also look for hydrogenated. If an oil is hydrogenated, I don't care what they tell you, don't take it. It's going to produce some trans fats, which are the worst fats of all to consume, because they are related to cancers.
We've used up our half an hour so fast.
Half an hour, for Christ's sakes.
Everything was very informative. I learned a lot, and I hope the TV audience learned a lot too. But at any time you want to come back and continue on, no problem whatsoever.
Well, we got to do that because we've got some other major issues to talk about.
Okay, great. It's been nice having you on the show, and we'll we'll make a date for another show, make it tentative, whatever, and then we'll see everybody then.
That sounds good.
Thank you for watching Know the Facts, and see you next time. And I want to thank Dr. Harvey Claremont for being on the show. He's a very good man. Take care.